Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited for all of you to be here today so we can learn about how to nail a press trip. Let's see. I am Rebecca. I'm the director of virtual events here at Wanderful, and I am tuning in from my hometown of Fort Worth, Texas. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop in the chat your name, where you are, where you're from, are you traveling? And also let us know, have you been on a press trip before? Are you going on your first one? Are you a seasoned press trip traveler? Let us know. And if you haven't heard of Wanderful before, welcome. We're thousands of wonderful women travelers and content creators based all around the world, and our goal is to help make travel better for women worldwide. You can catch us in over 50 cities where we're regularly hosting local events. And we have an enormous online network so you can tap into the sisterhood wherever you are in the world while you're traveling. And because Wanderful started as a blog itself in 2009, we spent a lot of time helping content creators hone the tools of their own craft. And we help businesses tell meaningful travel stories using our creator network. You might have heard of WITS, our Travel Creator Summit, which is a not to miss. And it brings hundreds of talented creators and industry marketers together every year. We're all about opening up the world and lifting barriers for women, which is why we love hosting free and open online events just like this one to help you grow. Now, before we get started, I just want to take one more moment to give a big thanks to our brand partners for making this event possible. Let's see, we have people from Chicago. We have people from Brooklyn. Oh, that's so exciting. Oh, another one from Brooklyn, Boston. Never been on a press trip before. I love that. You're going to learn so much today. From the UK, welcome. Oh, some people are coming to WIT. So excited. I'll see y'all there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Lauren. She is the Director of Brand Partnerships at Wanderful, an award-nominated travel blogger specializing in Colombia travel, a published children's author and founder of Wally, the Wandering Wallaby. She's an entrepreneur specializing in influencer marketing and brand partnerships. She's a Massachusetts native based in Bogota, Colombia. Hey.
Am I live? Hi. I was waiting in the backstage. I'm like, hi everyone. Rebecca, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course. Welcome.
So excited to get started and talk about how to nail a press trip with some pros from the industry.
Yes, I'm so excited. We have two awesome creators that are going to be joining us today. Lauren, do you want to go ahead and give them a shout out and introduce them?
I would love to. And what's to me extra special about today's event and the creators that we have joining us is that they actually have been on press trips with me, with Wanderful, on our Wanderful Creator press trip. So we have worked together. Of course, they've been on tons of press trips outside of Wanderful, but they have like a really interesting kind of perspective. So I will start by introducing Elena Nikolova. Elena is the founder of Muslim Travel Girl, the leading Muslim travel site in the West, inspiring Muslims to travel the world in style without breaking the bank. She's been featured by leading media outlets such as the New York Times, Lonely Planet, Travel and Leisure, BBC, Islam Channel, Business Travel, Middle East, Thomson Reuters, and others. So coming from a diverse cultural background and traveling worldwide, Elena realized that many companies fail to view Muslim travelers for who they are, recognizing their needs and providing services that complement their religion. So her passion is to connect brands with Muslim travelers and provide insights into their needs and concerns. So welcome, Elena.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. Thank you so much. It always feels so weird when you hear like an intro about yourself.
Yeah, well, look at all you've accomplished. So excited to have you here. And for those tuning in, Elena and I went on a press trip together to Peru with Intrepid Travel in collaboration with Wanderful. It was super special. We had a lot of insights to share from that. So Elena, thank you so much for joining us today. And then I would like to next introduce Corey Fay. Corey is a travel enthusiast and content creator who balances her love for photography and videography with a full-time consulting and banking. With over 6 years of experience in the travel industry, Corey has mastered the art of curating unforgettable travel experiences and sharing them with the world. Through her platform, Corey shares her travel experiences, tips and tricks, insights on how to make the most out of your adventures. Her stunning photos and engaging captions inspire and captivate her followers, making them want to pack their bags and embark on their own journeys. Corey, thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And similar to Elena, Corey and I went on a press trip, a wonderful creator press trip in collaboration with Destination DC. So we have a lot of awesome insights to share from that as well. But thank you both for being here. Now let's dive in. Everyone, I think you're probably going to have questions throughout this. Rebecca's going to be throwing up some questions as time goes on, but we can also leave a little time for Q&A at the end. But let's dive in. I think the first kind of thing to cover is from you two experts, first of all, what, for those joining who don't really know, like what happens on a press trip, what is a press trip? Let's start with actually defining like what actually is a press trip and what happens on a press trip. And Elena, you want to start?
Yeah. Well, press trip is when a brand tourism board invites you to showcase a destination or a partnership with them to experience what they have to offer, whether it is a tourism board that is the destination specific, or whether it is a brand that is a hotel, for example. It can be anything in the travel industry in general.
Okay, cool. And Corey, what happens on a press trip? Like, what does that look like?
Typically it's kind of a lot. Typically you have your transportation's included, accommodation, meals, but something I want to highlight too is it's not just something for influencers. Like press trips have always existed. They've been journalists, bloggers, and more recently influencers. So everyone thinking that this is like a new thing that's happening. It's happened for years and years. It's just usually been like magazines or traditionally like print that's been going on them. But yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of tourist attractions. You meet with local experts, and there's tons of opportunities for great photo and video content.
And so off of that piece of, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that, can the both of you kind of speak to different types of press trips you've been on where maybe the focus was with a tourism board versus like going with a brand? And can you speak to both of those?
Elena, you want to start?
I was going to say, I actually have only been in my life to one tourism board partnership in Italy when I started at the beginning. And for me, that was a great fun because it was more diverse in the sense of what you experience in a destination. And also I find them a little bit more different, I would say, than brand partnerships, simply because they have different requirements. They're normally more how do I say that? Government oriented. I guess the one I have been on, they have more box in a way to tick on a tourism board partnership.
Yeah, the way I view it is typically like a tourism board partnership is like an umbrella of all these other different brands. They have partnerships with hotels, transportation services, different restaurants, different local attractions or vendors. So if you're going on a tourism board press trip, you sort of visit all of those. Where if it's a specific brand, typically it's just you can focus on that one niche.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like what are tourism boards looking for when you go on a press trip? Like from a deliverable standpoint, how does that side work in terms of, what are they asking for? What are you delivering? What is the kind of like normal thing that you're seeing? Or does it change, brand to brand, tourism board to tourism board? Can you speak to that a little bit, Elena, and then Corey?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's, as Corey said, it's a little bit more overarching. So they're more looking like they have more deliverables because it normally includes different business aspects of, of that region, for example, that you go. I went to Bologna, for example, and I had to review the transportation methods and the hotel and all these activities, where if you are going to a one brand destination, then you only have to do things overarching that brand, rather than, kind of going full on with 5 different or 10 different, experiences that you have accumulated.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything too. I think in the past press trips, I've seen everything. And I'm sure, Elena, you're the same. I've seen articles, blog posts, social media posts, whether it be a reel or an Instagram or a TikTok, or videos that they can even use on their feed. And a lot of it's also Instagram stories. It's some culmination, like ad or a la carte of like all of those options. But typically press trips, because you're doing so much more, the expectations of your deliverables, quantity and quality wise, is typically higher.
Right. And I would love for you each to speak about, because we're talking about like how they change depending on who you're going with, what the kind of theme of it all is. Now, obviously, Elena, you and I went to Peru together to highlight the women's expedition for Intrepid Travel. And I would consider that one that had so many partners involved. And we had such a robust itinerary with that. Like, how do you typically manage, we're not just working with Intrepid Travel. This would be an example of a brand partnership versus we weren't working with the Peru Tourism Board. We were working with a tour company to highlight their trip. Like, what does the preparation of that look like?
Right. First, learning about the brand, what they expect of you on that trip. I think with Intrepid, we were very lucky because we did have a good, we had a good group, and we also had a good brand to work with, which I love. I personally look at the diversity of, how they approach someone who, needs to have halal food, or, their numbers of employees that are, diverse, things like that I can incorporate into my storytelling once we go. Then I look into the destination, for example. Peru was a dream destination for me. It was on my bucket list. So I was like, places I want to highlight, stories I want to tell, options that, things I want to experience. From my perspective, I also look at how Muslim friendly a destination is. For example, like in Peru, there are only 2 halal restaurants. Like when I looked at Lima. So, it's how do you advertise or promote to your audience that destination? So it does take quite a bit of work to match the expectations of the brand with the expectations of your audience, and actually what you want to tell as a storyteller, because at the end of the day, it's our perspective of that trip.
I love that, like marrying the two. And Corey, what about like in your experience, just like, we'll use DC for an example, right? We had a group of women come together to storytell in Destination DC. And what was that kind of like preparation for you?
DC is a unique one too, because I think the creative brief around that whole trip was to not show the side of DC that you always see. It wasn't to show the landmarks or anything historic. So for me, before going on really any trip, it's a lot of like researching the destination, or if it's a brand, like researching the product, and then creating a kind of like loose content plan. Not rigid enough that you don't have that element of natural storytelling, but at least I have some kind of direction. And that's been super helpful in terms of clarifying with the organizer if there's any like needs or logistics, especially like I'm a big high quality content person. Sunrise, sunset are my hour blocked off that I want to be able to control. And sometimes press trip organizers don't really think about that. So being able to communicate that, and also equipment needs, like some of the places we go, you're not allowed to bring in like bulky DSLR cameras or tripods. So making sure that you have a really good relationship with the organizer, getting all that communication down. And then in terms of packing, like I'm a big gear person, so making sure I look at, okay, these are the types of places I'm going. If I'm visiting a lot of landmarks, I'm probably bringing a lot of wide angle lenses, things like that.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot to think about before you actually go. in terms of gear. Now I know there's some, I saw in the comments, there was a travel fashion blogger in the comments saying, you know, they want to get more involved in doing press trips and that kind of thing. There's also an element of like packing, right? Planning where are you going? What do you want to wear? I know Elena has definitely a story to share from Peru on this, but maybe like I would love for you both to speak a little bit about that too, because I think a lot of people don't realize the preparation that goes into it. So you get that creative brief, right? The organizer, the brand is sending you, this is what the itinerary is going to be. This is what we're doing. You're also doing your own, research and whatnot. But can you speak to a little bit more of the preparation in terms of like packing, not only personal things and outfits and whatnot, but like the gear side as well?
I guess I'll start. When I first started going on press trips, I would legitimately make a PowerPoint of like, these are the destinations I'm going to. This is what I'm going to wear to match that aesthetic. If you are a fashion forward photographer, I absolutely recommend it. I think it's really helpful, especially when you sort of get those like complementary or contrasting colors. I am not a fashion person at all. So since then I've kind of scaled it back to, okay, if I stay within this like neutral palette, but even then when I go on trips, and I know there's a couple people that have been on trips with me, I'll stick to like a 3-color palette. So if I'm going to, for example, Croatia last year, it's all blues, oranges, and whites. Or when I was going to Morocco, it was all red, oranges, and white. So at least when you're planning your feed and you're planning your locations, you have like sort of a bucket to pull from. That being said, some kind of like capsule wardrobe, I think, is also really helpful. There's a lot of places, especially if you're traveling internationally, where you have to have like your shoulders or your legs covered. You want to dress respectfully, like having different things that you can pick and pull from has been really helpful. And then on the gear side, I am a backpack girl through and through. Like I am the girl that always has the backpack with like 30 pounds of camera gear. I think that if high quality content is something that you want to create, investing in gear and investing in lenses that sort of like cover a wide range. So like my go-tos are my 16 to 35 and my 24-70. Like that covers 16 to 70. Like that's a pretty wide range. And then again, just planning out, okay, if I'm going on a safari, I may need a 100mm to a 400mm. I don't own that, but that's a lens that you can rent. And renting gear also for press trips, I think, has been really, really helpful. So a little tip and trick for you, I guess.
Love that.
Wow. So I guess I'm a little bit more laid back in that sense. I am not a fashion blogger. I have probably very little fashion sense. I do have certain pieces that, for example, Lauren knows that I want to travel and take photos with. That was one abaya that I had in Peru, which is kind of like flowy. Abaya is the one that you wear as Muslims to kind of cover. But this one is super flowy. It's large, so it makes for nice photos and effects. And we did have an issue with that in Peru, but it wasn't anyone's fault, really. But I managed to get some shots with it. So that was the most important. And I think these shots looked quite nice. In general, I look at the destination where I'm going. If I can coordinate with something, I will. But over the years, I've decided that my comfort, I love photos of travel bloggers and fashion bloggers where they have these amazing dresses and then they cover them with something and just run in the cold. That is not me. I think I feel too old to do that. So I just go for comfort. And, it works. I guess in a personal brand, it is your personal brand and it's how you feel about things. And as an entrepreneur, you decide, if you want to work with this brand and if this brand is happy with you. So obviously, if they have approached you, they like the style you have overall. With regards to gear, I have DSLR cameras. Depending where I'm going, and I guess that was for Peru. For Peru, I use my phone and a stabilizer. I don't go anywhere without a stabilizer. My phone is brand new. It captures 4K photos and videos, although it eats the memory. But it captures the quality that you want on social media or for my blog. Anyways, so for this trip, I didn't take DSLR cameras. I recently bought something, which is the DJI Pocket, which I absolutely love. It's another cinematic small camera that shoots in 4K and higher, and honestly, it takes perfect quality. I am also I tried to learn photography when I started, and gear, that didn't work out well for me because the numbers just flew off the top of my head. So I decided to stick with the basics of what I feel comfortable with, what I know will look good, instead of going on a press trip, having a disaster because I don't have any photos or anything, because I couldn't make my lenses work, basically, which has happened in the past. So yeah.
But I love kind of both of your perspectives because you have different styles with how you approach things, right? And I think I saw a comment earlier here asking, do you need to have a professional camera for a press trip? Immediately, you're both like, no. And that's the answer. Like, brands are hiring you or bringing you for your aesthetic and how you work, right? Like, Corey, I know your video and your photography, it's so cinematic. That's your focus. That's really what your like bread and butter is. So of course you're going to bring your gear and that, like high level quality of content. Elena, like obviously you have really high quality content as well. You just approach it from a different angle. And so I think that's like an important thing to bring up. So now that we've talked about gear, preparing, the creative brief, like there's so much done beforehand. We didn't really talk about yet, like how did the two of you market yourself so that you're chosen for a press trip? Can you each speak to like, how do you, I mean, obviously this is a whole nother topic, but an overarching view of how are you, pitching brands? Are you letting them come to you? And then like, what is kind of your style with why someone would choose you? You know what I mean? Like, what's that? How are you marketing yourself for a press trip?
So I personally, at the beginning when I started, so I've been doing muslimtravelgirl.com for 9 years now. I think a memory popped up when I started 10 years. At the beginning, I had no followers. It was literally a hobby. It was something that I would do because I love traveling. And when I became Muslim, I realized that there were not many Muslims. So I would go to conferences and events and just approach brands and meet people. I think it's super important to realize that in this industry, it's personal relationships. I mean, in every industry, it's personal relationships, right? You need to know people. You need to, be nice to people because you never know what will happen in the future. Hence Lauren and me talking here because we didn't know each other before a press trip. But also, it's starting. It's getting out there. I know somebody said you always freeze when you're new and you want to pitch because you don't have the numbers. It's a matter of just getting that step. One thing that really, really helped me, and it's helped me many things, is you will always hear a no. So there was something I read about 10 no's, 1 yes. So I always go back to, well, I heard like 7 no's. There is a yes, but the 10th, right? And yeah, you just pitch yourself. You can have so many networking events, which is coming. And then you have the travel market shows, Arabian travel market, which are big. You just have to go prepare as best as you can and make those connections and just pitch 10 no's, 1 yes. Now that I have more work and I have a little girl, I try to take trips that are meaningful to me, like the Peru trip. It was on my bucket list. It was with amazing women. I was like, I didn't even ask my husband if he can look after the kid. I literally just said, yes, I am going. And then we'll make it work. But, I'm a little bit more selective because I don't have that much time. But at the beginning, I used to say yes to everything that, offered.
I do love I also agree it's a numbers game. Of course, I'm pitching on behalf of Wanderful and on behalf of my bloggers and creators in my little agency. It is such a numbers game. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up. Like, you're gonna get a yes if you keep at it and you keep after it and you revise and you review and I think, Elena, something you touched on earlier, like your niche within, your Muslim travel girl, you're really speaking to a specific audience. So a brand is coming to you for something specific a lot of the times. And Corey, I'm sure you can kind of say the same for your style of content. So I want to hand the mic to you. and kind of like hear a little bit about your experience and like how you market yourself.
Yeah, I think it comes down to three things. I think the one big thing is, even if you don't have like the number of followers you want or you think you need to have, like having a strong online presence and staying engaged and posting and engaging in other people's content. Like a brand doesn't want to go to your profile and see, oh, she hasn't posted since 2019. What's going on? That coupled with, if you can sort of demonstrate some kind of value add through expertise, your unique perspective, whether it be storytelling or quality of content, I think that's really helpful as well. And then that third element, going back to what Elena said about networking and building those relationships with either tourism boards or brands, will always increase your chance of being chosen on a trip. But on top of that, also networking with other creators. It can be kind of a lonely industry, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're sort of on your own. And there have been more cases than one. Then if I can't make a trip and I know what they're looking for, I can say, hey, I can't make this trip, but my friend Chris or my friend Kara or someone else can make it. Like, I'll suggest to them. And I've gotten on trips that way as well. So that's another piece of advice.
Very good.
I love it. Corey, I was going to ask you something very specific about, I lost my train of thought. That's okay. So going back to, some people are saying, you know, like, I'm new, I'm scared to pitch, I'm at the beginning. Oh, I thought my train of thought came back, everyone. This is about you, Corey. Something I think really cool to point out. Of course, Corey, I feel like you've been growing massively like over the years, and like I've known you for a long time, and just like seeing your content flourish and like you continue to grow. I'm going to point out that on the DC press trip, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, you had quote unquote the following out of everyone. So this is an important note I want to make to everybody looking who was like, I don't have the numbers. I'm still small. They're not going to pick me. Corey had the smallest following on the trip and had the highest engaging content out of the entire trip from everybody. And I think that speaks so highly to like, I think people approach it with, oh, I don't have 100,000 followers, so I can't land a press trip, or I can't, you know, market myself, which is not the case. Like, I think that's such a good example of like, okay, I might not have 100,000 followers. I might not even have 20,000 followers yet, or 10, or whatever it is. But look at the content that I can produce, and look at the engagement I'm getting on my, you know, whatever channel that it is. So I want everyone to be thinking about that too, from a standpoint of how can I, where are my strong suits, and how can I present that as my value add? So that's
Can I just say something?
Yeah,
about that. Sorry. It's just from a recent experience, actually. Micro-influence is your thing. So you don't have to actually have the followers to, you know, you have to have the engagement 100%. But also I feel that in the space of algorithms, if you are, as Corey said, if you keep posting on social media and, you know, you're good at what you do, or you are learning at what you do, because you obviously can't be good at with your first reel, for example. But the more reels you get, the more you push, you have better chances, or almost equal chances with somebody who has 100,000 followers to get picked up by the algorithm. You know, recently I had a reel go over 1.5 million just because it was one reel that people liked out of some other ones that had like 5,000. Like, you never know. So your chances are almost equal to everyone, whether you have a big following or a small following, of, you know, your content being pushed out.
Love that. And to the person who just commented that they landed a press trip through a connection, what you were saying earlier, both of you, about it is so important to form connections in this industry. Like you said, Corey, it can be very lonely and isolating, and like you're on your own creating your, you know, your thing all the time. But at the end of the day, like, you know, my connections with both of you is kind of like what led to our experiences. And I'm sure you have so many stories about that too. So like you said, getting to conferences, WITS is next week, getting to conferences, starting those relationships, you know, all of that is so important. So in the matter of time, I want to move to our next question, which is ways to build your portfolio. So we are talking about, you know, we have a lot of mix in this group right now, watching from they've been on press trips before, they've never been on press trips before, so all in between. Like, how did you build your portfolio, or what did you do to land your first press trip? Like, what did that experience look like? And I don't know if Corey, you want to start.
Yeah, I can. I think for me, it was sort of creating high quality content, and that, I mean, I learned everything I know off of YouTube. Like, there's no formal training, and that's, I think, most of the like high quality creators in the industry. Like, we've learned everything from each other and online. But creating that content on a regular basis, like Elena said, and showcasing it on Instagram or TikTok or even a website, sort of demonstrate your skill and expertise. And then collaborating with smaller brands, other influencers, that can also sort of increase your exposure and credibility. And then participating in like online communities like WITS and other groups sort of related to your niche can help you sort of connect with other like-minded individuals and potential brand partners.
For me, I am not a social media influencer, or I don't consider myself a social media influencer, I guess. But my blog was what started this whole thing. My blog is my predominant option that makes my money, that has most views, that I showcase to potential collaborators. So at the beginning, when I started, and I was little old me with no experience of anything, and YouTube, Corey, yeah, YouTube is the university for everything. I did a lot of free trips. So I didn't do press trips with tourism boards, but I did a lot of trips for hotel reviews. For example, I would go to places like in Thailand, and I would look for places that were mostly to my audience, because obviously I am my audience as well. I want the privacy. For me, it was private pools, places where I can feel comfortable to like have a swimsuit instead of burkini, that are Muslim friendly, because again, this is what I'm showcasing on my website as well. And I would pay for everything. I would just ask, for example, whether a discount or whether a free stay to review their property. And this was such a small thing. And I guess that was 10 years ago. And I know now people are saying don't work for free, but at the beginning I did a lot of free stuff like this that I mean, there are trips that I was going to take anyways. But they build my portfolio, because then I can showcase that, hey, this is how many views we got. This is what we got from there. These are the comments. I would always include comments, especially at the beginning, because people will be like, oh, amazing, I didn't know this hotel existed there, or I didn't know they had halal food, or that, their villas were so secluded, etc. So it gave me that selling point and that advantage to kind of promote this whole thing. I mean, yeah, I've worked with Four Seasons. I was like, who from Four Seasons gonna give me a villa for like $3,000 a night for free to review? But they did, because you go again. And I think that's with everyone. You go with the selling point of what you promote, of how you promote, of how you create the story. And then you just take it from there.
Love that. So I guess, how do you find, wait, Corey, did you speak to how you built your portfolio? You did already? Okay. I was like, wait.
For Elena, if you don't mind. Elena, at what point did you switch from doing like discounted or free content into thinking like, hey, I can start getting paid for this? Wow.
I love that. It took me a very long time, actually. I think my mistake, but when I started as a hobby. For me, it was a passion project. And it took me way longer. I was making money from advertisement affiliates to actually start charging brands, because for me, it was still a hobby. Like, I would get Four Seasons to review, or, luxury hotels, and I'll be like, oh, wow, that's payment for me. And up until the point where I said, well, actually, no, because now it's taking time from my personal life, from my marriage, from my child, etc., whatever that is. But it did take me a very long time to actually switch. And it was my fault. It was my mental, it was the mental switching I had to do. Because I know even at the beginning, brands would have paid me if I asked, especially after I had built those 5-10 trips that were free, that I had as an audience, as a portfolio to showcase of success stories. I could have started charging. Yeah.
What about you, Corey? I'll ask you the same question. Like, at what point did you go from, taking free travel to actually, I'm going to charge for this? And when you like felt confident with asking that?
I think I started like similar to Elena, like trips I was going to do anyway. I looked at it as, oh, I'm making money because I'm not paying for something. But what you don't really realize is if you're shooting a hotel, you're not just sleeping in that hotel. You're spending the whole day at that hotel shooting it. If there's people in the pool, you can't shoot it yet. You have to like time it right. And when I realized, again, like it was impacting sort of the rest of my travel, that's when I said, hey, this is something I should start getting paid for. And on top of that, in terms of like negotiating rates, I'm always the proponent of, hey, throw out a number, even if it's ridiculous and they come back with something else, you'll land somewhere in the middle. Best case scenario, they say yes. And more brands were starting to say yes to this number that I didn't even think was possible. And that kind of fueled the fire for moving on and reaching out to other brands and tourism boards as well.
I love that. And like, you got to start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can I just ask, you know, how are you finding, let's say, you know, you finish this press trip, all went great. How are you continuing to build, or are you continuing to build relationships with the companies, tourism boards, brands that you're working with? How are you kind of finding other future opportunities, and how are you keeping those partnerships alive so that you can come back or do something else with them?
I think for me, it's especially following up with the brand and organizer, just express your gratitude and share your content and feedback. I know most trips like this will sort of make you upload it in some places, but even just expressing gratitude and just bringing a personal element. Please deliver your content within the agreed upon time frame. I know that some people have issues with that, but that's just like a professionalism and a respect thing that you have with the client, and taking any feedback that brand or organizer might have. And I think something to highlight too is you're not just making a connection with the brand, you're making a connection with that person. And those person who are running these brand trips or whatever, they could jump to another company. When they go to that company, they'll think like, hey, I really enjoyed working with Elena at Intrepid. Now that I'm working at whatever other company, I would love to have her be a part of our creator network. And that's really important to remember, because I think there are some creators who think that they are maybe like too good for small brands or things like that and burn that bridge. But that bridge like can sort of come back to you. It's a small community.
I need to jump in here because of course I'm on the organizer side, you know, sometimes the brand side, and then sometimes I'm on the creator side. So I'm all over the place. But Corey, what you just said resonates in my heart as from the organizer side. I will tell you all, oh my goodness, this personal connection means so much in this industry and is a defining factor for getting invited over and over again. And that's a really good point. Like you said, there's a lot of turnover in the industry as well. One person moving from this tourism board to this tourism board, or tourism to agency side, and keeping those connections. And so they remember you. And I swear this is true again from the kind of agency side is, wow, they were such a joy to work with. Communication was so easy with them. And of course I would, both of you on this call right now or on this event is what I think of. Like I would work with either of you again in the drop of a hat. Communication wise, getting deliverables on time throughout the trip, that level of professionalism and the follow-up. So, wow, it is so true. Like just that communication and connection, I guess, is really the word. And Elena, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree 1,000%. I mean, I have that happen to me where I did reviews for a hotel and then the person moved to a different hotel and they invited me for, you know, for another review there, simply because, you know, they enjoyed working with me. And I think what Corey said, even if you don't get paid for the trip, consider it as a professional trip. So your deliverables on time, your professionalism. Don't forget that no matter what you do, you're still getting paid for that. So you can't really, on press trips, you can't relax 100% because it's not your holiday. It's something that you're doing, you're getting paid for, you're getting to create content. So you should always remember at the back of your head that yes, you know, you love this company and these people, but also maintain that, you know, professionalism to an extent of, you know, delivering and creating the content. Even if they feel like your friends, you're still there to do a job. And also, I think I really like what Corey said about being too small or too good for small brands. You know, being nice person to other creators if you go on trip with them. You know, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. And I think in life in general, it defines you like what type of person you are rather than, you know, what number of followers you have or how much money in your bank account you have. And I think that should carry like throughout the whole thing.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking of professionalism, do you have any tips? Because of course, this whole event is about how to nail a press trip, right? And part of that is that level of professionalism. Do you have any tips with like maintaining professionalism while still creating those connections and, you know, personal relationships?
For me, it's always number one, touching base with what they need. Number two, being honest, but also, you know, I wouldn't like, even on the Peru trip, now I can talk to you, Laura, more on a, you know, on a friendly level because we have a connection. But at the beginning, we don't know each other. You're still kind of like feeling the other person or the rest of the content creators. So it is always, you know, kind of remembering to be polite, you know. No, we do that. I think we do that in general, like with people.
Yeah.
But also after the trip, you know, email, connect, even if it is 6 months down the line. Sometimes there will be people that I really enjoy working with, and I will email them six months down the line and be like, hey, how are you doing? I know you had a baby, or I know you moved to this company. You know, how is it going? Whether I will email them directly on their email or I will add them on LinkedIn if you're using LinkedIn. But it's just, you know, it's just these small reminders of, you know, something personal that you might remember that helps, you know, to build that relationship and connection. And again, I always go for genuine. Like if I actually didn't like working with someone, there have been times where I never emailed them. But, you know, I will do the deliverables. I'll be cautious, but I won't go beyond because you know, we didn't have that relationship.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like, and I also work in corporate America, so I have that like corporate mindset, but I always think of it as, okay, you are the CEO of your own company. Like, how do you want people to view you? And I think it can be tough, 'cause especially in these press trips, like you're spending 24/7 with these people. You are getting breakfast with them. You are sitting in an Uber with them, and you are in a lot of settings that you wouldn't necessarily be with, and even like bars late at night, things like that. But typically with organizers, I sort of let them set the boundaries in terms of starting out, it's email only. If they start talking over text and they say they prefer text, great, we'll switch to text. But I won't be the one to sort of push that boundary right off the bat. And another thing you were saying, Elena, like keeping in touch with people. And I think even if like a brand has an event in your city, maybe you're not working with them, but you know that person from going on another trip with them, go and visit them, say, hey, get coffee chats. And I think during COVID, that was huge too. Like the amount of people that I reached out to during COVID saying, hey, I know there's a lot going on, but I just want to make sure you're okay. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. And things like that go a long, long way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with everything you said. So now that we've kind of talked about professionalism, what a press trip is, what brands are looking for, after, you know, you have a set deliverables you need to deliver by a certain time, like how are you following up? What is that kind of process looking like for you? And then what I would like to do is kind of show everybody on this call how Wanderful has been kind of tracking our results and following up, but just want to hear from you first. Yeah, like what that follow-up kind of looks like afterwards.
Elena, you want to start?
Oh, yeah. So for me, it depends on the deliverables. If I have articles, normally we specify, for example, how many weeks or how many days after the press trip you have to, you know, to do those articles. If you have Instagram reels and social media, whatever numbers there are, like 5 reels, you know, carousel, whatever it is, you just go through that process of actually, you know, delivering to the highest quality you can for the trip that you have, you know, been commissioned to do. And it really depends on the brands. I know Lauren's going to talk about how they track it. Sometimes it will be analytics that I screenshot. Sometimes it will be numbers from the analytics on my Instagram. Then they need to be emailed. Sometimes, depending on the trip, I will actually put a presentation together at the end when I have delivered everything within like every single thing on social media and blog, and just send it as a presentation. Again, I will include comments. I get a lot of comments on my website, which I find that are super beneficial, because that's a feedback on top of the views that you get. And I will include comments as well there. And of course, I will email and say, I loved working with you. I would love to work in the future, etc.
I think, especially with content, like providing clear and concise reports to the brand or organizer after a trip, that can really demonstrate the impact that your content has had and lead to future opportunities. And within your content, clear call to actions like links or specific websites or hashtags are a great way to track like conversions and ROIs. And I know there's a ton of tools, and I know Lauren's going to talk about one for social media analytics that can sort of help you track your engagement and metrics for your content.
Love that. I think, yeah, the kind of overarching theme here, right, is like presenting to the brand, to the tourism board, this is the work I was able to do, and this is the, you know, real impact that it had. This was the influence that we have as creators, right? And I think it's just so important to demonstrate, our effectiveness, right? And so I would like to really quickly show you how Wanderful has been tracking analytics. I don't know if Rebecca, you wouldn't mind showing some of these, some of these reports. So this, of course, this is kind of like I pulled it all together, but at Wanderful, we use a tool called Influence Kit. It is amazing. It's made by bloggers and creators for creators. And something that I really, really love about this program is it pulls your analytics over time. So, you know, this is actually me grabbing screenshots just to show you today. But if you were to go to the actual link of this report, it is constantly updating. For example, this is the report with Destination DC. So this is the trip, the Wanderful Creator Press trip that Corey and I were on. And this is still those impressions and that engagement, those views are still rising from blog posts and YouTube videos, whatever it is that we had. It is constantly updating so that your influence continues to kind of show. And that's something I really love about this, that it's never ending. So this is just like a really cool little snapshot of like the goal of our press trip and kind of what it was all about. And then if we go to the next slide, which is from the Wanderful Creator Press trip in collaboration with Intrepid Travel. This is a trip that Elena and I were on. And again, same thing, like it pulls all of the data from every single creator that was on that trip to show you the overall influence of that trip. And it's still updating. I looked the other day and I think the views went up, you know, however many more. So it's just a really, really cool tool. And of course we use it like the agency side. From every creator can create a profile and we can all show our collective impact together. But you as a creator, you could be doing this just you. And you don't actually have to be going on a press trip to show your influence. And I would actually like to ask Elena and Corey about this, you know, going back to our earlier conversation about when you're just starting and you can put your own analytics together for a trip. Like if you're have either of you done that where you go to, I don't know, let's say you're going to Costa Rica. It's not a paid trip or it's not it's not in collaboration, but you want to show, here's what I can do. I'm funding this travel, but look what you could get if you work with me.
I haven't. You just gave me an idea though, because I came back from the US and I still have so much content to put together and it will be great. I regret not doing that for the past 5 reels I did, but I'm going to do that actually, because I think it's super important to see how much influence you have. And I do really like Influence Kit of, you know, how much influence and how easy it is to use of what you can do by yourself to actually showcase to brands that you want to work with.
And I like how you said like, oh, it was specifically in the US. Let's say you want to work with more US-based tourism boards or whatever. Maybe this wasn't a paid press trip or in collaboration, but you're pulling your content from that. My US content got 1 million views or whatever the number is, right? But you can actually put your own reports together and like use that as a pitching opportunity. Corey, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love tagging like hotels and brands that I would stay at anyway. There was a reel that I like randomly made at a hotel that I was staying at in London ended up with 2.5 million views. Like, and I don't have that many followers, so that was like a big whoa moment. But the hotel reached out to me immediately. It was like, hey, how can we work together in the future? Let's get something on the calendar. And this is a hotel that I've been staying at through like work and personal for 3 years now.
Right.
And so it's kind of like I don't want to say treat every trip you do like a press trip, but you don't have to go to like these exotic locations. Like there is something cool where everyone lives, whether you think it or not. I think some people take it for granted because they live there. But you can create like this sort of like press trip quality content or content for brands sort of really anywhere. When you add that to your portfolio and you can add those insights, I think if you're a creator or business account on Instagram, you can screenshot those insights and say, hey, this is how many people, 1, saw it, 2, engaged with it, 3, this is the percentage of people in each market. This is the amount of people that follow me. This is the amount that don't. There's a ton of analytics that you can break it down to.
Love that. There's so much data to work with. I think we overlook the different ways that we can pitch ourselves with the data that we have and with the content that we have. So that was definitely my point in showing you this, that you can do this too. And actually, Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide, in case anyone wants to give it a try, we have a really awesome partnership with Influence Kit. They're actually our this is not even sponsored by them. We just love the tool. We use Influence Kit to track all of our success. They're going to be our official reporting sponsor at WITS next week. But they are offering anyone who wants to sign up, we'll send you this link too. If you just want to try it, it's free. You sign up, you can get 5 reports to test it out. So again, we're talking about putting your own report together. You can do that and use that as a pitching tool for yourselves when you're, pitching tourism boards and brands and all that good stuff. So after this event, we'll definitely send this to you. We just want to show you a really great way to, help you land future partnerships and whatnot. And Rebecca, remind me, is that our last slide on our presentation? Because if so, we will get into a couple of questions. So I think we have a little less than 10 minutes. So we'll try to get through as many as possible. Starting with, did you ladies have prior journalism or communication experience prior to starting press trips?
Nope, sure didn't.
No, I didn't. But again, YouTube is a university on its own. Also, I guess for me, I did have to learn a lot because, again, it's my website. So SEO was and is my number one learning tool that I have to, and I always have to keep up to have my website on number one place on Google. But no. However, having said that, I am editing old posts from 2014 and I cringe at my writing back there. But
progress, baby.
Exactly, it's progress and you have to start from somewhere. So even if you're freezing, if you think you can't do it, you literally just have to start, because now I'm like, oh my God, how did I write that? This is so long. But if I hadn't started in 2014, I wouldn't have been writing in 2023. So no, but it's a progress.
Love that. So true. So our next question is, you can negotiate selling? I think this is more of a thought than a question, but we'll still bring it up. You can negotiate selling UGC. You can also reach out to related brands who may want to sponsor you to be featured in your coverage. For example, a swimsuit brand. So UGC, for those who don't know, is user-generated content. So for example, you're not actually going on like a paid press trip, but you're making all of this content. You could sell that to a brand or a tourism board or whatnot. Have either of you done that? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I did in the beginning. Especially because I have a high quality camera and that was sort of what I was focusing on. This was before UGC was a thing. I feel like I didn't know a ton of people doing this at the time, but you could go to a hotel and say, hey, it's cheaper for you to let me stay here for one night and I will get you 15 high quality photos than for you to pay for a whole photography production team. That's hugely attractive to brands. And that kind of snowballed and got me comfortable with 1, pitching, 2, negotiating rates. But UGC, I think, is a hugely slept on whole part of the industry. Because also not a lot of people want to be an influencer. You don't always want to be in front of the camera or things like that. So UGC is a great, great, great way, I think, to break into it.
I haven't, but I was looking into it recently. I mean, I haven't. I have had brands sponsor, like send me dresses, for example, things like that are Muslim brands that I promote.
Mhm.
But again, that was before UGC was a thing, and I never pursued it because it was for I never looked into it, to be honest. Yeah, it's something that I will be looking in the future.
And I think, you know, something really cool about UGC too, you have high quality content. You don't necessarily have to have 1 million followers in order for that to be attractive to the brand. You could have 0 followers. If the content is exciting, that the brand, also brands and tourism boards are desperate for content. They need content so bad. So if you come to them, hey, look at what I made, you could license this or you could buy this to post on your own channels using your marketing campaigns. Like, that's a whole nother side to this whole piece of the puzzle, right? Like, that's a whole nother thing on top of press trips that you could be doing. So I think that's a really good note to, I forget who put that, but thank you for bringing that up. Here's a question from Robin. What do y'all think about how brands and travel organizations want us to be everything? Expert writers, photographers, and videographers all in one.
Well, you're an entrepreneur. I think you have to be good at, at a bunch of different things. I wouldn't say you have to be excellent at them. I'm definitely not excellent at photography. But again, you have to pick. I think for me personally, I concentrate on one thing that I'm really good at, and then 5 things that I'm mediocre at, and then it kind of levels it up for me.
It's also communication, right? Like, I'm first and foremost a photographer, then I do video, and then writing is like the very bottom. I wish I was better at it, but truth of the matter is I'm not. I've tried. But I think also when a brand says, hey, I want 1 reel, 1 blog post, and 3 stories, I can go back and say, hey, I know you want a blog post, but what if I gave you 3 photos instead? Yep. You're going to get better photos. You're not going to get a great blog post out of me. So it's better value for both of you, and also sort of lets them know that this is not only what you want to do, but what you're good at, which is what they really should be paying you for.
Okay. Yes. Again, coming from like the agency side of this is like my number one thing in kind of teaching tourism boards and brands. They should be really, they might have a set of deliverables they want, just like Corey, you just said, blog post, this, that, the other thing, but it's really important to highlight your skills and where they're going to get the most bang for their buck. And so that's really, really important too, when you're negotiating and pitching, like, this is where I'm really going to stand out. So if you want this, I can almost like supplement with why, which is going to be better for everybody. Okay. Curious how folks started with their first fam press trips. I subscribe to Matador and get excited for pitches, but then freeze because I feel like I don't have enough experience. I think we've talked about this a lot, this chat. So I don't know if we need to go in super detail, but imposter syndrome is real, and that is true. And if I may just say, we've all heard the saying, fake it till you make it. I believe in the phrase, fake it till you become it. And all 3 of us on this call, someone had asked earlier, do you have formal training in, photography and writing and all of these things? If you believe in it, you work on it, like, look at where the both of you have gotten to this point. Like, it's really a beautiful thing. So if you have to fake it till you become it, then I'm a huge proponent of that. Okay. What happens if you don't have high enough engagement for content captured or posted from the trip? Are you blacklisted with that partner?
I think you should answer that, Lauren.
Yeah, it's a Lauren question.
That is a me question. No, I mean, listen, obviously can be a little disappointing if, if you've pitched yourself as having this super high engagement rate, and that's really like the standout thing that you're proposing yourself for, and it comes back and there's, no engagement. I think the main thing is like just aligning expectations, right? So if you say to me, my engagement is only 1% or 2%, but I have this really high quality content, like you're setting yourself up for a better, again, setting expectations. So it's not the fact that you're going to get blacklisted. It's really just more of, make sure that when you're pitching, you're being truthful with your numbers. You're being truthful with your engagement, because it's very unlikely, if you're pitching yourself truthfully, that your content's going to absolutely tank. And let's say that it does. Let's say that, I, from the, organizer side, was expecting you to get like 5,000 views on your Instagram reel. We're just coming up with a random number, and it gets 500. A good idea from your end, and what I would really love to see, and I would be like, wow, that's really cool. They went back to like, look at this. Hey, this didn't perform really well. Again, communication. I'm going to make a new reel that I think is going to perform better, maybe on a different day. And you try to maybe supplement it a little bit. That's my advice that I would really love to see from a creator. If like, it's really not hitting the numbers. Yeah, that would be my advice. But listen, I think we're at time. We're officially at time. I want to thank everyone so much for being here, but especially Elena and Corey. Your insights were amazing. You're both incredible creators, and everyone can learn so much from you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to chat with everybody. I think that's everything. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. If you want to reach out and have any other follow-up questions, like, feel free to reach out to us. I think probably Instagram is maybe the best, but really appreciate everyone's time.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. And yeah, we'll send a follow-up after this with the recording and links. Yeah. And so thank you. Everyone have a fabulous day.